All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order here. You're at the SCTA RCPA County Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So, and with that, we have a quorum, so we don't need to formally go through the roll call. Right? Or do you want to?
I think that it would be nice to do introductions. We do
Good.
have some new members here and some members of the public. We do have some new citizen members that are joining for the first time today.
Good idea. Yeah. So I'll start. Ken Eichstad, City of Petaluma.
Michael Harrigan, City of Guilford.
Elizabeth Bridlington on the Santa Rosa CBPAC.
Joe Morgan from Sonoma County Bicycle and Pedestrian.
Margie Tar from Petaluma PBAC.
Shirley Johnson, Winter Park CBPAC.
JP Harris, City of Kentucky.
Elizabeth Tyrese, Sonoma County Regional Parks.
Dana Trey, SCTA.
And from the public,
Chris Barney, SCTA.
Barbara, visitor.
I'm Emily Betts. I'm very smart.
Zoe, I'm from Smart.
Good.
On the screen or
Good.
on the.
Yep. And then those on the Zoom call, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hey, Rupert, SCTA.
Karina Wilson with City of Santa Rosa.
This is Orlando Ramirez with Caltrans.
Lee Sharton from the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition.
Good. Thank you very much. Oh.
Adam Garcia with SCTA, RCPA.
Thank you, Adam. And then in the public, there's, I'm sorry, one more person.
Hi, I'm Taylor McAdam with Fair and Peers, and Ashley and I will be sharing about the mission, vision, and goals for the countywide ATP.
Good. All right, thank you very much. With that, we will go through public comment on items not on the agenda. So, do we have any in the room or virtual? Okay, gone. All right. Approval of the meeting minutes from May 23rd. This is an action item, so, and like to hear approval and a second on that if there are no comments.
I move to approve minutes.
Okay, Elizabeth moves.
And second.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. With that, anybody in objection? No, approved. Right. No, I didn't hear any. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that.
No. That's good. All right. So under planning here, we have the countywide active transportation plan, ATP, review of vision, goals and objectives. And so there's a presentation on that.
Great. Well, I'd like to just start out by introducing our two folks from our consultant team. They'll be walking us through this presentation. And that is Taylor and Ashley from Fair and Peers. Some of you may have met Taylor in a kickoff meeting, but I will turn it over to them.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Dana. So today we wanted to share the scope and schedule. Some of you have seen that before, but not everyone. So just we'll quickly go over that for the project. And then we have draft versions of a vision statement, goals, and kind of preliminary thoughts, I'll call them, on actions and objectives. We wanted to share those and get your feedback today as we finalize them. So we can start on the next slide with a little bit of our scope. So can everyone hear me okay too? Just confirming.
There's a little feed.
Maybe not muted.
I'll keep going, but let me know if you can't hear me. So for all of the elements that I'm going to talk about, we are going to be doing them both at a regional, countywide level, and then we have 7 local plans as well that we'll be working through as part of this effort, and that includes unincorporated Sonoma County, Cloverdale, Cotati, Healdsburg, Rohnert Park, Sebastopol, and some city of Sonoma. So to start things out, okay, sounds like someone in the background still might need to mute. Anyway, okay. So, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Taylor, it actually looks like it might be coming from your feed, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's an echo. If you have 2 microphones on.
Yeah, so it must be.
Because they muted it.
I can try to go to a different room, but
That actually sounds better now.
okay. All right, well, my apologies. So first off is establishing a foundation, which for us means, collecting all, okay, it's not better.
Is there someone that's speaking in the room? Because I can't tell if it's coming from a microphone or from Zoom, because everyone else on Zoom is muted.
Yeah, I can move to a different room. It just won't be immediate, so.
I
So
also mean in the room that the board's in. Is there someone talking next to a microphone?
No.
No, there isn't.
Does she have 2 mics?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Sounds like Taylor has 2 mics on.
It's so,
I don't have 2 mics on, but there are other people in the room that I am in, so I can try to relocate. Why don't I do that? But it's gonna take a second.
okay, yeah, thanks, Drew. That's. So let's see, I'm trying to think if we can do anything while we're waiting.
I have a question. Sure.
I mean, I don't think we're big on it's not really on the agenda, and it was about follow up on your peers data collection.
Yeah.
If you had a data request, and I think in that data was go, we hope to get back in like a week. And admittedly, we have not gotten you back in the week. So
yeah. There will be some hard cutoff time, which I think is approaching in days rather than weeks. So, I think there's just gonna be a point where whatever they have, is going to be what they're gonna go with. So, if you have data that you think could be helpful, of course, the better the data that we have, the better better the product. Yeah. So if you have things if there's things you have, and provide those this week, that would be great. Get the Taylor's back on, and maybe she could help. Taylor, thanks for shifting rooms there. When you were out, we just brought up a question about the data collection from the jurisdictions and wondering if there's any hard cutoff line yet, or if things can be still submitted this week, or I'm not sure how long you would need.
Some of it is, we can get it all within days.
Okay.
We just gotta get through.
Yeah, so there's a request for some clarification on being able to submit additional data.
Yeah, you can definitely still submit data this week. And beyond that, it just kind of depends on how easy it would be to feed into our technical analysis. So please send any additional data this week. Beyond that, we may have already begun our technical analysis, but you can always ask us and then we can let you know if that step hasn't passed.
Thanks, Evie, for asking that on this. Can we send it to you, Daniel?
Yeah. Oh, so, okay, so we're sending shape files and that sort of thing to.
Yeah, send it to me and I'll get it to the consultants and you know, document what's been sent.
Good. Thank you very much. I guess we'll proceed. You sound great.
That's great. Yeah, no, I'm so sorry. I sometimes forget. I think the issue really only comes up on Zoom and not on Teams, which is my typical operating environment. So my apologies. Hopefully you can hear me better now. Worth it to have the discussion in a clear audio environment. So jumping back into the scope here though. So task establishing foundation really means collecting all this data that we were just talking about, both, you know, there's so many kind of efforts across the county, different departments and organizations. And so getting as much of that as we can for background. And then the technical analysis we will do at the county level for the most part, kind of broad strokes. So doing basically a what's called a level of traffic service analysis for the whole county. And then for each of the local plans, we'll zoom in and do a little bit more rigorous kind of quality control of that analysis based on our own work, as well as any of this other data we receive from the local jurisdictions. And then we have task 3 is engagement and coordination. And again, there's some stuff we'll do at a countywide level. For example, we're going to create an online survey and kind of map feedback tool, and that will be available countywide. But then we also have specific events that we plan to do in each of the 7 local jurisdictions, both coordinating with their local kind of BPACs, as well as with plugging into community events, in-person community events. And then task 4, projects and programs. So this is coming up with a draft list of projects and programs, and, you know, working through refining that list and prioritizing it with stakeholders and with all of you in the room. And then task 5 is funding and implementation, connecting those lists of projects and programs with available funding sources, and kind of planning them out over, you know, near, medium, and long-term time horizons. Then drafting the plan, sharing a draft version with your group, as well as a bunch of other stakeholder groups that we'll be going to regularly throughout the process. I should have mentioned, every group will receive like each jurisdiction, and then the different county committees will receive kind of 3 milestone updates. The first corresponds with the end of task 2. The second with the kind of the end of task 4, when we have a project and program list, and then the third milestone visit will be when we have a draft plan before bringing it to the SCTA board for review and approval. And then on the next slide, we can check out the schedule. Just at a really high level, we are about to be in August, and we'll start our we've kind of been preparing like the framework for our technical analysis, and that's why the data is so critical to plug in right now. And then it'll be kind of in September, October timeframe that we will start to workshop our findings with our different stakeholder groups. We're working on our public engagement and advisory committee plan at the moment. And then we'll refine that and really kind of conduct engagement throughout the whole process. I mentioned the milestone visits, but also we will come to the community when it's convenient for them, like when there is a local event already happening. So it's going to kind of be on a rolling basis. And then it'll be in early 2024 that we start preparing the projects list, and the funding and implementation tied to that also in the spring. Then there's 2 draft and final plan phases here. The first kind of set of deliverables you're seeing that leading up to the end of 2023, that is Cotati's local plan, which is on an accelerated schedule. And then the other local plans will all be delivered at the same time as the countywide plan in the fall, winter of next year, with review happening the end of 2024 by January, February at the latest. Any questions on the scope or schedule before we dive into the vision? Okay. Dana, I'll let you take this one because it comes directly from previous county work.
Yeah, so the SCTA uses our comprehensive transportation plan, vision and goals as a kind of a policy framework for other planning work and work we do here in general. So I just wanted to remind everyone that the vision for the comprehensive transportation plan is connecting people, places, goods as we transition our transportation network to zero emissions by 2050. And the accompanying guiding principles with that vision statement are to improve safety, equity, and quality of life. And so, we wanted to with that vision in mind, take a more focused look at active transportation and develop a vision statement specifically for the countywide active transportation plan. So that is up in front of you. We will talk through the vision statement for the active transportation plan. And we also, recommending to have the 4 goals were adopted in the comprehensive transportation plan be the goals for the countywide active transportation plan. We'll be talking through some actions that were identified under those goals in the CTP that are specifically related to active transportation and building those up into objectives for this plan. So that's just sort of a background where the draft vision and goals come from. And I do see a question in the room, and then after that we'll turn it to Taylor to talk through these. So go ahead.
Yeah, the inclusiveness of walking, how bothers me. Biking and walking.
Is there yeah, I mean, would the word I've heard the word pedestrian being used in place, or would there be another word that you would?
I'll let you guys wordsmith. I'm just saying these be more inclusive. this walking, because a lot of folks that don't walk use public transportation.
Great feedback. Thank you.
With the word rolling, how do you feel about that? Because that's what we've been,
Whatever you guys want to use, I mean,
Yeah.
just. the walk.
you know, whether you're, you know, on a scooter, in a wheelchair, pushing a stroller. I mean, that's kind of one of the words that we've used in Petaluma. So.
And then similarly change walk and bike. Up in the second line.
Yeah, and I think that's also maybe helpful because this plan does, it does cover micromobility more broadly, which is hard to encapsulate in a term, but the action, yeah, is maybe rolling or something, so that's good.
Right, well, any other initial thoughts on this vision statement? Is there anything else missing or that, you know, doesn't resonate with the intention and purpose of this plan?
We have new schools as part of the list of activity centers, transit services, jobs, housing, schools, all of them specifically.
Nice, yeah.
Another word is parks. Is that somewhere hidden there?
Intent for activity centers might include parks. By inference of the everyday transportation and recreation. But if there was a feeling that activity centers seems to feel more like shopping, then I would agree that there's a need to more clearly include that type of park and open space. If that's not an activity center.
I never thought of the shopping center as an activity center, but I think you're right. I think
I'm thinking of the kids activities and targets.
Yeah.
You could bike there.
Right, well, unless there's any other thoughts, Taylor, if you want to move on through to the.
Sure.
The goals, that'd be great.
Yeah, do you want me? Okay, great. Okay, so these, as Dana mentioned, are the 4 goals that come directly from the county transportation plan. And we, what's on the right just kind of describes each of these goals. And so we thought it made sense not to reinvent the wheel and come up with new goals. And so we took them directly from that plan and we'll just apply them here in a way that is tailored to active transportation. But want to make sure this feels like it's capturing all of the goals we have for this plan and for active transportation in the county.
One question I have here is if there's some way to reference the goal of reducing the financial burden of transportation on folks. So that you could meet the zero emission goal by making sure there's plenty of EV charging capacity everywhere, but that isn't our goal. So the low cost, the lower financial burden, accessible to households of all income levels, what language you would use, but I just want to make sure that there's nothing here that ends up promoting EVs. not that I'm opposed to EVs, they're part of the solution, it's just for this particular thing. And maybe because it's in the context of the active transportation plan, it's fine and it goes without being stated, but that's one thought that I have here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we totally have, purview to edit these goals, even if we took them mostly from the CTP, we can just adapt them. And perhaps the last one says something like zero emissions, and low cost, because in the description of that one is to enhance quality of life as well and meet diverse community needs. So I think it fits well with the intent of that goal.
Taylor, one comment that I have on these, and as an engineer, are there metrics that we can put behind? We don't necessarily need to capture it here or go into deep discussion on it, but what does it mean connected and reliable? Well, okay, seamless network. What are the metrics that we have now? And then what are we trying to get to? Because if we're doing a plan that's for the next however many years it's going to be, it'd be good to okay, here's what we got now, and here's where we think we should be going, and just to give it some reference. And again, that's kind of the engineer in me talking, because it just seems, no offense, but just it doesn't seem as tangible without that.
Yeah. No offense taken, because we agree, and that's what's on the next slide. We don't have the metrics yet, but we are getting there. This is definitely more of the planning component, a little bit more fuzzy, but and I think we could maybe dive into these a little bit more. We can always come back if there are higher level statements, but we can move on to the next slide and give a sense of, again, what's on the screen here are still pretty high level statements, but the next step for us is, so these are the same goal, just starting with the first one, connected and reliable. And then what is on the right here are the actions that were defined again in the county transportation plan or the comprehensive transportation plan, the CTP. And we selected the ones that stood out as being obviously actions that we want to take as part of this plan. And then for each of the actions we agree on with this group and other stakeholder groups, we will come up with metrics. So for create a high quality bike and pedestrian network, the metric could be not only lane miles of facilities, but lane miles of low traffic stress facilities to get at the high quality piece of that. Or percentage of sidewalk gap, percentage of sidewalk gaps closed or filled. Those are just example metrics that we could use to get at this action. So that's kind of the overall thought with this slide and the next steps for these actions, but wanted to get your all's take on the list of actions here. So for connected and reliable, do you see anything else on this list that you would want to include or not on this list that we'd want to add to get at the feeling of connected and reliable?
If I may, one thought that comes to mind off of this list, this seems to me more focused on roadway operations, transitions to roadway connections, and not all these connections are related to roadways. They're connecting between roadways, the class 1 trails. So to me, the nuance of this doesn't create that addition of the connectedness that's not part of roadway for ways to move.
So a question that might be related to that, but any clarification on our, in our packet, what you got had additional lines that are highlighted.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so the one action under the goal of connected and reliable, in the comprehensive transportation plan that really stood out to us as being applicable to the active transportation plan would be create a high quality bike and pedestrian network. The other actions are listed here and not bolded in the presentation, so we wanted to include those so that folks could take a look at those and, you know, maybe some of those resonate to you as being related to active transportation. Maybe we should include some of those, but our suggestion is to just include the action that's in bold there or highlighted in the staff report. So
Although we, and then I would create, you know, when some hand out the additional create a high quality bike and pedestrian network really gets at, is that enough to get at the non-road, you know, class one bill? That's. Oh, yeah. Sure. So I was wondering if, under connected and reliable in our handout, we have there's an additional line that is highlighted and it says create a high quality bike and pedestrian network. And I'm wondering if that gets at Elizabeth's point to that what we see here and the non-highlighted four bullets don't, you know, are more roadway focused. And if that additional create a high quality bike and pedestrian network gets at the class one trails connection between the roadways and the other.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, we'll put that note down. Our intent was, we would certainly include class one facilities as part of the network and trails. And so we'll make sure that whatever metrics we come up with for this capture on and off street facilities and the connections between the roadway network. Yeah.
That fourth bullet point seems like it's also valuable. Ensure effective transportation options for youth, especially for youth, older adults, because what other transportation options are there for youth except for their parents? Yeah.
Would it be better to say people of all ages and abilities though in that spot?
Yeah.
And then I had a comment on create a high quality bike and pedestrian network. Would we want to add low stress in there too? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
Actually had that note because of the objectives that were in the RFP. And that was one of them.
I like that addition as well because it gets better at the network and it maybe steers us toward ideas for metrics, which it's not just how many miles of bike lane did we strike. Is it actually lane miles that somebody wants to use? And then the curious thing that I was pondering, I don't know what metric you might use when you get to evaluating the network aspect of it. I know that people.bikes has their analysis, but I've never ground truthed that to know if their metric really tells you, does the bike lane really take you all the way safely through an intersection? So that would be part of the challenge for a metric.
Yeah, we'll definitely look for metrics that get at both the connected and reliable, which I kind of see as the low stress part. But for connectivity, you know, you could measure bike and travel sheds. So how far can you get from a certain point or in 30 minutes, or how many jobs, schools, parks can you access within 30 minutes from a certain point on a low stress network. And we have examples of using that metric like in Contra Costa County. So it's something we've done before and could apply here. Okay, oh, go ahead.
I keep wanting to say safe and connected and reliable, and you have it in the next bullet, but I feel like every bullet should have safe in there, because that's like the one reason, the primary reason people say, I don't ride my bike or I don't walk, I don't feel safe. And,
Mhm.
you know, and the optimized roadway operations, optimize is a very kind of fluffy term. And so, you know, optimize and ensure safe operations to allow for the, you know, or optimize roadway operations to allow efficient and safe movement of people, just to keep reinforcing that. I think you've got it in here. It's like, yeah, it's in the next bullet, but I feel like it can't be overemphasized. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on to the next goal, which is the safe and well-maintained? And I think the thought was just to kind of reiterate this, that we would carry forward the bolded bullets, but we won't use the unbolded bullets unless we hear otherwise from these groups that we want some version of them in there. So we'll just carry forward the bolded versions. Any thoughts on these ones, or if you'd like to see other sort of actions emphasized?
I don't know if this is the right place for this, but the biggest obstacle right now, in part to having a well-maintained active transportation network, is funding. I would like to say something about, I don't know what the right goal would be, but ensure adequate funding or ensure a share of ongoing city revenues and don't just rely on grant money. I don't, anyway, something about funding here might be nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have somebody in the public there, with their hand up.
Yeah, I had a question. It seemed to me that a long-term plan needs to take into account the move towards e-mobility. And I wonder whether this plan is sufficiently aware of that in the design and suggestions that will be made.
E-mobility meaning electric,
Yeah.
like e-assist and yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you see already on the existing bike lanes, somewhat of a tension between regular bikes and e-bikes, between pedestrians in multi-use trails and e-bikes. So I wonder whether we can reflect more on that and take that into account.
Yeah, certainly this plan will take a look at that and how it introduces a little bit of an even greater spread of users of certain facilities, from kind of the slowest pedestrian users to very fast e-bike users. So yeah, we will include that in this plan.
And then the other thing was about Vision Zero. So I noticed that in Dana's staff report for this meeting, there's a reference to the Bay Area Wide Vision Zero Committee, but not to the Sonoma County Vision Zero Committee. And I wonder whether that was just because you cannot mention everything, or I just wanted to emphasize that we have a county Vision Zero committee that has a dashboard and collects information and has proposals, and that also is integrated in its report.
Yes, we'll be visiting the County Vision Zero Committee as a stakeholder for this plan. Thanks.
Okay.
So, since some of the jurisdictions here have probably already spent a lot of time on their LRSPs, the local road and safety plans, I don't know, we're having a sidebar conversation on whether that needs to be mentioned or whether it's really something that's more drilled down, or is it an implementation of the Vision Zero? I mean, obviously it is separate, but it does help implement the policies and strategies of Vision Zero. I just wanted to bring up LRSP and whether that has some fit here at this level of the goals or not. I mean, the objectives or something that, you know, like a sub of this.
Maybe that could be added to that, you know, employee Vision Zero policies and strategies, or in Vision Zero and safety plan
That
policies and strategies.
Mhm. Any other thoughts on safe and well maintained or? Right, we can go on to the third goal, which is community oriented and place-based. And the one we pulled forward here is employ complete street policies and strategies that support a diversity of uses. And I'll note that we discussed the focus on strategies that support high density, walkable and transit oriented communities. But felt that is ultimately more of a land use goal, and this plan does not include any actions that would change land use in the county. It doesn't mean we can't discuss how walkable high density environments support active transportation, and we will do that in the plan, but the plan itself won't have any actions that are land use based.
I don't know, I kind of disagree that it says that support high density, walkable and transit oriented communities. And so that the high density, walkable or transit oriented communities is perhaps more land use, but the actions that will come out of this plan are going to be actions that will support that type of land use planning. Let's just think about like the smart train and our efforts for bike share have been to support just that kind of that strategy right there. So I don't know, I think there's value in that strategy or in that goal.
Yeah, maybe we could be a little more specific, saying focus on active transportation strategies, and which seems obvious, but just clarifying that the strategies we come up with in this plan would be the kind of the transportation piece of that equation. So yeah.
Zena, would you have a comment here?
Yeah, so a lot of transportation is done in the context of economic activity. And it seemed that we forget that as soon as we started talking about active transportation, it's mostly like private people moving around. But in many countries, I think there's like cargo transportation, cargo delivery. And maybe we should have a more recognition in this plan that active transportation is not just like a consumer focus, but it's also an activity that can support economic prosperity.
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks.
yeah, I mean, just to put, people think people riding their bikes don't spend money. Well, they all got credit cards, people walking are gonna buy things, so yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the goal, the action we add here is not just to support high density, walkable and transit oriented communities, but to support commercial districts as well.
One comment I do have on it is a diversity of uses and users. I think if it's community oriented and place-based, that means it's kind of, it's a diversity of people. Make sure that that gets captured in there.
Okay.
And just thinking about Zena's comment there of like economic resilience is that always to me sounds good. And if you can provide for people walking and biking, taking transit, rolling and having a sound economic base that recognizes that and supports that, that's kind of that's the future, I think. For it. So.
There's a comment in the back of the room.
I would like to see someone that portrays more community orientation, like if you what's typically used for the first one, now we know. Like, there's not language that implies or suggest that it is specifically for community or maybe around.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the term community is, I think, is powerful. And if we use it right. So did you hear that, Taylor?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. Could you repeat it or? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
My comment was to see more language in here that portrays community orientation. The bullet points on this one could have been for the first goal that we saw, and I wouldn't know. So just more language that shows that community is involved in participating in how these goals and these actions are formed.
Okay, great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Along those same lines, I don't know quite how you would fit this in, but so much of our shared public space is dedicated to transportation. And it would be nice to be able to use that for things aside from cars. So make it possible to close a street for a day and then to make a block party easier, or make parklets easier, or I don't know. So something else to talk about how we use that very valuable public space to help build community.
Yeah, that's a good one. That'll be fun to operationalize and come up with a metric for. I like that. Okay, really great feedback so far. Here's our last goal, which we may adjust to zero emissions and low cost. So we pulled out a lot of the bullets for this one as applicable to this plan. One that talks about transportation funding for zero emissions. One that talks about incentivizing transit and shared mobility. One that talks about a full network of zero emission transportation options, and then one that basically suggests to implement the Shift Sonoma County Low Carbon Transportation Plan. Do we need all of these? Do some of these stand out more to you than others, or is there anything missing here? I mean, certainly we might need to add one. If we do add the low cost component, we would need to add an action around that.
What is meant here by shared mobility? That makes me think of ride-hailing companies, but they aren't going to help us toward our emissions goals. And the data to me is fairly compelling that they don't actually reduce car ownership and driving.
Yeah, we could use a different word. I mean, shared mobility also it does refer to transit. And then it does also include like bike share programs, scooter share programs. That is sometimes referred to as shared mobility, but maybe that's not the right term here.
Maybe we could just say shared active mobility.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Rick, do you have any comments?
Yes, I'm looking at that first one, prioritize transportation funding for zero emission strategies. That almost suggests that the bulk of the money would go towards supporting electric cars. But the fact is, cars are not safe whether they're zero emissions or not. And I would still argue for putting that word safety in front of there for safe zero emission strategies. And actually, no car is zero emissions if you actually look at its entire life cycle, including the manufacture thereof. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, and in truth, I think every strategy we put forth in this plan will be zero emissions because they're all active transportation strategies. So maybe this action is a little too broad, and we need to be, you know, maybe that almost goes unsaid in this plan because everything in it will be zero emissions. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Is it implied that you don't have to put active transportation zero emission strategies? Is it basically because this is the ATP, that is part and parcel of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this plan is the action item for the comprehensive transportation plan, putting, you know, that's one of this plan is the action. So we might not have that one as it's written, but we still want to make sure we're including the idea in this plan and reminding people that active transportation is a zero emissions strategy.
Maybe better packaging here would be, instead of zero emission, something about making it possible for people to live, to travel around the county without a car. And then your metric could be reduced car ownership, or number of households that don't have a car. Or that choose to get rid of a car.
Yeah. And I will say that is one place where shared mobility and cars actually can be a positive is it can be easier to live as a non-car owner if you still occasionally have access to a shared car service. There is a lot of data to support that. So that is one way that could still be incorporated here. I don't know that it would rise to the level of being a full-on action for this plan, but something we will keep in mind. Okay, great. Thanks, Dana. Yeah, we're at the end of, so we're gonna take these kind of wordsmith. Oh.
Taylor.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Could there be some wordsmithing around the third bullet point of take bold steps? It's unclear about what that would mean. So some wordsmithing to be a bit more concise and clear would be helpful.
Okay, yeah. Is there anything in particular you'd like to see? Like anything you think would be a bold step for an active transportation plan?
I think understanding the intent, the intent that you had around that bullet point to then come up with like what verb or what action you want to use for that. So would you be able to take both steps if not impeded on with like funding or something like that? But I'm not really sure what the third bullet point means.
Okay. Okay, any other comments on this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a initiative, I think in Cotati, they passed in the city council a won't add concept. I don't know, if you're familiar with that. I don't know whether it's a Dutch word. I'm not sure what the word would be that we would use here. But that would be an example of a bold step because it's kind of, rather than opening a new connection, you make a connection slower. Open complete street idea and pedestrian safety to the foreign center. So that would be, for me at least, it would be a bold step to implement such a thing in different neighborhoods in Sonoma County.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, thank you for this input. If you have any ideas that come to you after this meeting, maybe you can share them with Dana and she can pass them on to us, but we will make adjustments based on what we heard today to the goals and the actions. And then for each of these actions, we will come up with kind of those metrics and measurable ideas that you were talking about. So those are our next steps, and we'll bring those back to you.
So this is a question both for you, Taylor, and Dana, and maybe Drew. Is this information up on the website beyond just the meeting record? Is there a web page on SCTA's website for
this plan?
Yeah.
There is, and there's not much on there yet. And we do intend to add more information to that webpage. So as soon as we, have the documents that are ready to put up there, we will be doing that.
Okay. So, and then Taylor, I mean, so you're working on this, you've presented, the vision statement and goals. When do you ideally want any additional input, up there? What's, within the next 2 weeks or?
Yeah, I think maybe the end of the month is a good goal.
And then all that would go through Dana and she would send it to you. And if people have questions, they could ask them through, SCTA and through you. You're a nice person, you pick up the phone, so that's good. So yeah, all right. Okay. Good. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Right. So next up is smart pathway wayfinding system plan.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Hi again, my name is Zoe Unruh and I'm a senior planner with SMART, and we are already underway with our pathway wayfinding plan and very excited to let you know where we are at this point in time in the project. So a little bit about our project. The study area involves over 70 miles of both existing SMART pathway as well as taking into consideration those planned pathway segments. Our pathway crosses multiple jurisdictions and municipalities, and it shares multiple designations, including the Great Redwood Trail, the Joe Rodota Trail, Foss Creek Pathway, and others in Marin County. Next slide, please. So this is just a look again at what we all hope the pathway will be once it's fully built out, and we look to have wayfinding along the whole pathway, and that's part of the consideration of this plan. Next slide, please. So this project, we started as a result of listening sessions that were held specifically on the pathway in 2022. Feedback from that process really emphasized the need for wayfinding along the pathway to ease navigation and make connections possible. So we started this project in the spring of 2023. We've already conducted an intercept survey on the pathway of users, how they get around, where they're traveling from, typical distances. And we've also done some existing conditions, and these photos are from field work that was conducted. So you can see the pathway is unique in different settings. And wayfinding would go a long way to really tying the pathway together and making sure people understand they're on this unified facility. Next slide, please. So just to summarize some of those key findings from the existing conditions, the pathway accommodates a diversity of users. This was very obvious, both from being on the pathway and doing those intercept surveys. We saw people biking, walking, rolling, with dogs, and a lot of people are using it for different trips and reaching different destinations. The pathway passes and connects to a diversity of destination types and land uses. And so accounting for that in a design and style and aesthetic that really encapsulates what the pathway is will be important. Existing signage is inconsistent and it includes a variety of formats and types. So that's something we want to address. You know, currently our pathway exists of several different segments that are not currently connected. And as a result, what are trailheads or how people experience the start and stop of the pathway is different than ultimately what we want the pathway to be, where we'll have one kind of key terminus at either end of the pathway. But accounting for that now so that users can know that they are entering the pathway and exiting the pathway is important. And then lastly, facility types and pavement materials do change. And those transitions can be sort of different, and letting people know that they're still on this continuous facility is important, even if maybe the facility itself doesn't feel the same in different contexts. So what can we do with wayfinding to address some of these issues? This presents an opportunity to develop a consistent sign approach and brand to help unify the pathway and orient users. We also have the opportunity to include signage at all the trailheads, even those temporary, so people can navigate now, and that will eventually, we can change that over time as the pathway is built out. We can provide wayfinding information at stations and access points. One of the things we heard both at our virtual public workshop and through our intercept surveys is promoting that connectivity between the pathway and our rail. So making sure that people are able to orient on and off the pathway to connect to the train and other transit facilities. Identify placemaking opportunities. This is a big corridor, and it's really wonderful to take the opportunity to take in the local surroundings and kind of promote and create a sense of place. And we may get to do that with the wayfinding. So that's an exciting opportunity. Respond to maintenance needs. We have to consider sign material and types and placements so that they can, continue to be visible and are clear for people on the pathway and can survive the elements they are exposed to. And then use different types of marking, including ground markings, to help kind of unify different pavement types. Next slide, please. So in terms of the scope of this project, we are looking at a unified branding for the pathway, what kind of sign messages we want to have, location and placement planning for the current segments of the pathway. And then we're working our way towards design drawings and to design drawings that we can take into implementation. We are not fabricating the signs as part of this scope. That will be the next phase. What this project is not, does not involve proposals for new pathway improvements or construction of new pathway or other program or operational recommendations. This is really focused on wayfinding. So here's a look at our timeline. As mentioned, we started this in the spring of this year. We've done that existing conditions analysis, which we summarized here, and are starting to look at the needs, the wayfinding needs on the pathway. That intercept survey was conducted, and we did hold a virtual public workshop at the end of June. We are now in summer, so we're getting towards design and brand concepts, which we're really excited to bring forward for the public to comment on. That's always the exciting part of these projects, is you getting to look at something and get a feel for what it could look like on the pathway. So we'll be bringing those forward in late summer. And then as we get into the fall, we'll be working on that final placement plan and drafting and finalizing the design drawings, which we will then be able to take into our fabrication and implementation phase. So we wanted to hear from you all. Here's just some prompts we thought we could discuss, but you know, some questions we have are, what are the biggest need or issue that this project in particular could solve along the pathway? We want to be coordinated with our local partners. As mentioned, the pathway crosses a lot of local jurisdictions, and we want to make sure that we are working closely with our partners. And then any thoughts on other agencies or groups or people we should be talking with. So that is it for my presentation, and open to discussing these or any other comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zoe. So going around the table here, we want to just start with you, Marja.
Yeah, one of the things that popped into my brain is we're in the middle of wayfinding in Petaluma. We've been working on it. Well, we started it quite a while ago.
I will update it, but
Okay.
yeah.
And one of the places where we got stopped was the implementation.
Yeah.
Are there places that any of you know about that could actually take a design that we provide and then actually implement it onto signage? We're looking, Petaluma needs that information.
There's funds out there.
Yeah. Well,
If you know of any, would you mind letting Ken know? And he can then let us know. It's just something we feel like, I feel like we're stuck, which obviously we may be stuck in other ways, but that would be a help.
Joe?
Yeah, plan on not putting in balusters, but looking at a different way of backing them up if you have to have them, so that they're not at the entrance. You have a couple, I know one is from the county, but if you're going under Highway 101 south of Petaluma and you come down the hill, you could be doing 25, 30 miles an hour, and there's a baluster in the middle. And I can guarantee you there have been people hit that and go down. So I mean, the number of accidents that occur at balusters and entryways needs to be rethought. And I think there's been discussion that we take them out completely.
Yeah, no, we are. So, but the value to Zoe here is just make sure we don't put another, you know, obstruction or some sort of a, you know, hindrance to safe operation on the trails.
Yeah, they're in Roner Park, they're in, they're all over. Healdsburg probably the worst by the tracks.
Yeah.
It's got some that, if you have a tandem or if you have a extended bike for taking your children, you have to walk. You have to get off, and it's like you get there and all of a sudden can't make the turn.
Yeah.
So there's some real problem with that. And I'm quite concerned that you don't do it, that we just start the extending some of these bike paths and get them done. Doesn't matter if the train goes up there, but it would be nice to have some bike paths extended north early.
Yeah, yeah. He's just wayfinding.
I know,
Can't solve
just
that
wayfinding.
problem, so.
But that's a way to find out.
Okay. Yeah, well, we have a vision of the Great Redwood Trail heading all the way up, or right all the way up to Eureka.
I have another question, but
Yeah.
I'll do wait.
Okay.
I have a couple thoughts on signage. As a cyclist, I rely very heavily on pavement markings. I don't tend to look up at signs at all because they usually aren't relevant. There's speed limit signs. They tell me how lanes split up ahead. So I have had the experience of trying to get on the smart trail up at Guerneville and just not seeing the sign that tells me how to avoid actually getting on Guerneville Road and to take a little side path because the instructions were posted up high and I, as a cyclist, looking down on the bike lane, simply didn't see it. So I understand there might be vandalism reasons why it's better to have signs higher, but it reduces their functionality. And I've had problems in both directions at that station until I figured it out. The other thing that I find frustrating about using Smart Trail right now, and I don't know if this is Smart's responsibility or the city's responsibility, is that the cross streets aren't marked. So I'm riding along the Smart Trail and I don't know what the cross street is. So I keep having to pull up my phone and see, oh, here's what the cross street is. So just basic Fern Avenue, Sebastopol Avenue, whatever it is, to tell me so I don't have to do that. And again, that could probably just be solved with paint. Paint on the pavement.
That has been, in terms of our dialogue with the community, a real priority. So noting the streets that are being crossed, that's, one of the higher priorities in terms of what people want to see on the pathway. So we're definitely taking that into consideration and incorporating it into our plans.
Great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say pretty similar marks to what Elizabeth said, like a thought process as I think about having bike routes in the city of Santa Rosa is instead of doing wayfinding because they're up above somewhere, is there a way to create like a standard pavement marking that people know, like, I don't know if it's through Sharrows or Super Sharrows or what, but having that as your like route or whatever and being a visual on the ground because we're not looking up as much at times.
I was just in Santa Barbara and they are doing some really interesting bike projects, including trying to deal with a particular situation where you simply as a cyclist cannot ride on the busy road. So instead for a one block stretch, divert cyclists off the road onto a widened shared use path, but very effectively use just green paint markings. I, as a cyclist, know I'm supposed to be on the green paint. I follow the green paint. I end up on the shared use path as opposed to on the street where I rode there once and never again.
And I mean, the green paint could be similar to the smart train colors.
And they continued the green paint on the shared use path and then again off the shared use path. So it just sort of guided you along that way.
Breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Drew.
Can you speak a little more into the mics, especially if your voice is more soft spoken? Because I know over here I'm having a hard time hearing. So I just want to remind you to speak directly into the mic as much as you can.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Anything else?
That's it.
Jason?
Well, adjacent to the smart train or smart pathway, we have a lot of city runner parkway bike signs. And I think it would be beneficial, it's probably a bigger conversation just right here, but to tie those in together somehow, like smarts and the city runner parks, just due to how close they are.
Yeah, that the connectivity is important. How you take people off the smart trail into downtown Roner Park, Petaluma, or to other trails that the city or the county may have in their jurisdiction. So that I assume we'll have opportunity to work on that. So yeah.
One of the things that's come up with at our CBPAC is I don't know if it's quite wayfinding or maybe just general signage, access or presence of resources. You know, that one of the things that one of the CBPAC members or a couple of them came up with is, you know, how do I know where there's water or a restroom, especially from a walker? So again, I don't, you know, this fits into a finding. It might pull more into, you know, where are general resources like the Roanoke Park, City Hall, and police station. That might be another way to get at that resources. But I just want to mention that it did come up. This has come up better feedback, as well as the other things that have been said already.
Thank you.
We just put up a bunch of signs for the Foss Creek Trail. That's like wayfinding. My only concern would be just I don't think the city has an appetite to remove those signs. So when putting up the smart ones, we need to figure out a way. It's not or getting like sign fatigue.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect of this project, is recognizing those shared designations. So that's definitely something we kind of built into the scope and have been thinking about as we entered this project. So it's a really long corridor. There's aspects of it that have local identities throughout the pathway. And we certainly don't want to create sign fatigue, but we want to make sure people know that they're on a facility that can get them, you know, as far as they potentially want to go, and as far as it'll take them. So
That might just be as simple as the placement of the smart or the smart sign. So it could be not a big issue.
JP, do you want to chime in?
They really hit some of the big ones I was thinking about, and that is knowing your location on the trail. And then also they started to touch on it. There's certain areas where it's not easy to figure out where the trail is when you're actually crossing it. And the perfect example, I think, is County Station going south, because it actually looks like you're on the platform. And that you have to kind of get to the end of the platform before you can see that the trail actually continues. So that kind of signage, and then I think you had mentioned breadcrumbs or something, just letting them know that you're still on the path, and you're, you know, confirmation that you're going the way that you thought you were going. And then, well, I mean, and clearly you're going to do it. It's just it doesn't make no sense to say, but just like that identity, so that you know that this is the smart path, and maps are going to be good for people to know where they can travel.
Elizabeth?
First off, thank you for doing this. I welcome seeing these improvements to the whole corridor. A couple of nuanced points off of what's been said already. Sometimes the trail zigzags, and so you're going on the other side of the track. And so that guidance, you know, to where you are going to, where you need to be. And so clear indications, and yes, pavement markings, but also upright markings too. Different types of users. If I'm walking, I tend to see things up rather than looking down. If my bike, I see things on the front. So incorporating all of those. I do like the where there's water available or restrooms available, because people taking longer journeys seek those, especially if we're talking about multi-mile corridor before using extensive corridor. It's a major destinations. And on your comment on knowing that this is the smart trail for the corridor, get a branding for that, but also connecting with the other brands on the corridor, like the Joe Trail. So we welcome discussions about that in the future. But thank you for moving forward with this.
We actually did that in our wayfinding because there was a high demand. People wanting to know where these pump goes. Services, and it's better if they use that as opposed to control stuff.
Yes.
Dana, did you have anything?
Thank you, Zoe, for being here and for presenting. Appreciate it. I think one thing I thought of when the discussion of pavement markings came up as an example in San Jose, the Guadalupe River Trail has the patched green markings. There's a number of different pathways that go off of it, and it goes under over, under bridges and crosses streets, so. I think was a really good example of indicators that you're still on the correct path. And then in terms of coordinating, moving on, we would love to continue to hear updates at this committee when they're available, and when you're available. And I'm just looking forward to working on this effort.
All right, before we go to the public, a couple of my comments, putting QR codes would probably be a good idea. That seems to be kind of the norm now. You can just take your phone and scan it and figure out where you are. The breadcrumbs, anything you do, just if you could just have the mindset, can we maintain this? And the sign manufacturing process seems to have come a long ways, and I think but everything has to be maintained, we put out there. The other thing is that, and Marja related this, I went to Cotati and went to Novato, and I said, who did your signage? And folks were great. I got recommendation. We went through all that. I got signs set up. I got all the colors and the iconography, and then I went out to bid, and I got 0 bidders. And so a suggestion to SMART would be, if the cities, the county have signs that they want to put in, maybe there's a partnership and we can go out with one big project. It's, it may be more work than what you want to do, but I just want to put it out there because we all have that need. And then on that same thought, the connectivity to, like, this is where you go to downtown, certainly you're focused on the pathway connectivity and keeping people on the MUP, but here's our transit center here, make a left and you'll get to the Petaluma River or the downtown or whatever it may be. So yeah, thank you. So with that, should we do the in-house? Is anybody in-house? Yeah. Or, oh, you had another one. Sorry.
I had
Sorry,
another
Marcia.
comment. One of the things we were thinking would be very handy in Petaluma was if our stations, now that we're going to have 2, hopefully, a map of the entire route, which would be also a map of the smart paths that goes from the base in Marin all the way up through the north end, where each station is listed. So that if you get on the smart train, you go, okay, so once I get to Cotati, I can get off here and go do my writing and then get back on the smart train and go up to Healdsburg, hopefully someday. That kind of.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, yep.
I don't really be speaking directly to you and Mike, but I noticed that the signage was only in English. The corridor that SMART is in has prominent languages other than English, so that'd be helpful to, for instance, like go straight ahead, like have that in Spanish or other non-English languages that would be helpful to community members. And then also to have mileage on the signs. So in Roanoke Park, it just says go straight to SMART, but it doesn't tell me how far away that SMART station is from where I'm at the sign. So that'll be helpful to have.
Yeah. Thank you. Good comments. Anything else for the folks here? Okay, and then virtual.
Maybe just make one quick comment.
Just one quick idea, I guess, is around any equivalencies to the distance to certain points. Yes, there's miles, but would that translate into, trying to think of what might be relevant for people would be, greenhouse gas emissions saved from driving or calories burned, something else that might just be interesting. That's why I was hesitant on the comment. Not thrilled about the idea, but it could be helpful just to make it a little more interesting.
Okay. Okay. Zena, please.
I have two suggestions for wayfinding. One is direction to public bathrooms. That's often not clear. You do the trail, you are there maybe an hour, and it's hot, and you're looking for a public bathroom. It would be helpful to have that kind of wayfinding available, and then also for e-bikes recharging. Where do we recharge? Maybe for a shorter trip that will not be an issue, but for longer trips, tourism, that could be interesting to have that information available. And then for people to talk to, I would say Sonoma County Tourism. What are they coming up with? How can this be more integrated in people visiting the area? What would be a good way to give information along the trail for people to act as tourists?
Thank you very much, Zena. Elizabeth.
Unless there's somebody else online.
Oh, is there anybody else online, Drew? Are you good? Okay, all right.
If I might add one more important thing, notes about accessibility, if there's any barriers to accessibility, slope or curve or something like that, and that might be something changes over time, but it's very important for users to know what level of ability is needed for certain slopes, or if there's an alternate route, if there's a barrier in place.
Good. One last comment. If there's a way you could get just a tourist, doesn't speak English, just test it out with them. I was thinking this 20 years ago, I did this trip over to the Netherlands, and they've done such an amazing job to get people coming in from other countries, and it's a big economic benefit. They don't have to rent a car, and they've set it up for the tourist. And we're here talking about recreational or getting to work rides, but I think having tourists fly into SFO, take BART to the city, take a ferry to SMART, hop on SMART, go to wherever, and they would be able to have this amazing trip and experience. And if it's understandable to them to experience this area, and we can make it thinking from how they're looking at it, that would be tremendous. So that's the vision. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, MTC Regional Active Transportation Plan, story map, implementation plan.
Yeah, so I just wanted to include this information for your, or these documents for your information. In this committee, in the past, we've talked a lot about MTC's Regional Active Transportation Network, which is an element going into their active transportation plan. They've now finalized a story map for their active transportation plan. There's a link to that on the agenda under this item. So if you haven't taken a look at it, I encourage you to do that. There's a lot of really good information and ways you could dive deeper into the data that's in that plan. And so that really serves as the active transportation plan document. It's a virtual story map. Also, as part of the plan, they've developed a 5-year implementation plan, and that really focuses on the near-term actions to enhance local capacity to implement MTC's Complete Streets policy and deliver projects on the region's active transportation network. So I did attach in the agenda that draft 5-year implementation plan. There's a lot of information in there, but it really focuses on funding, technical assistance, data collection and distribution, and you know, how MTC convenes groups and stakeholders for implementing the plan. So I just wanted to provide everyone's information and make sure that you have this and can take a look at it. The next regional or MTC's next active transportation working group is in September. And I believe some elements of this will be discussed at that point, but just wanted to put this out there, so.
Yeah, I have a question. This plan refers to the active transportation network. And then so many miles, different facilities. But the closest I could find is like a really gross map, like, you know, it just shows that it puts a swath, but it's almost all of Catania in one little swath. So I was like, well, what are the actual trails and plans that are included? And would it include our local plans?
Yeah, so the purpose of, you know, the MTC, the reason MTC made those very wide areas to be part of the network is to ensure that there are facilities that are built for all ages and abilities that are somewhere within that large network, right? So they didn't want to be so specific as to define like this street must have facilities built for all ages and abilities, but within that kind of wider area, there are facilities built to meet those standards. And the network is wider and kind of as population is lower, the network is wider to just really, you know, provide more opportunities to find that route, you know, the specific route that can meet those standards. And so, yes, it should refer to your local plans. But the idea is that, you know, if you're building something within that network, you should either be building it to meet the all ages and ability standards or have plans to on a different street or route to build that connection.
All ages and ability standards can be found.
You know, it should be in the network documents or in that story map. Yeah, I know that it was part of the discussion when they were developing the network. And I can find those documents if it's not obvious in the plan on the website.
And then I guess related to that, will the countywide ATP that we're working on now use these standards within these areas?
Yeah, I think that the regional active transportation network is, you know, will be looked at as like an overlay. So, you know, being able to identify when looking at the countywide plan and local plans, whether that area is within the regional active transportation network.
Do you know if we go after funding, we got to make sure that we're in this and it's, you know, it's clear our projects are in there then to get that funding?
So your projects don't necessarily need to be in the regional active transportation plan does not have specific projects in it. What you will need to do is if you're going after funding that it has MTC discretion, and your project is within the active transportation network, you need to be designing that project to meet the all ages and ability standards. And if you're not, then you need to demonstrate that you have plans to develop that network somewhere else within that, or develop that route somewhere within that network. So,
Yeah.
you know, kind of meeting the same need.
So, yeah, no one's excluded from it, so, okay. Good. Any other comments on this? All right. Anything, we're good, Drew? Okay, so no other comments. I guess we'll do a roundtable. We'll go start over here. JP, do you want to?
Well, if you've been to Katati in the last few weeks, you'll find it's difficult to get around. And that is because we've got so much road construction, crosswalks going in, like pretty nice looking stuff. So yeah, lots of activity on the ground activity happening right now. In terms of, primarily pedestrians, but we're doing some full reclamation roadway lanes, so we're able to get in bike lanes as well. Yeah, so that's what's happening in Katati.
Elizabeth?
For regional parks, I don't have updates at this time for our class 1 trails. We have a lot of recreational trail work right now. But next week.
Okay.
Right now, the city of Santa Rosa we're almost complete with our two-way cycle track on Armory Drive. So there's just little things that need to be buttoned up out there, but it's operational right now. And then we're also in the middle of the construction phase for the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor, where we're gonna redo ramps and make it more pedestrian friendly, and then add class 2 bike lanes.
Is there a road diet or a lane reduction on
it's a
that?
road diet.
What's the ADT on Santa Rosa Avenue?
Well, I can't off the top of my
Okay,
head.
it's killing me. I'm just curious what.
2 directions.
Yeah.
And it has to accommodate bus traffic, but it dropped quite a bit with closure of Courthouse Square. And I feel like, I don't remember the actual numbers, but it was way below the number that you need.
Really? Okay, good to know. Thank you.
I can just remind everyone to speak
Sorry.
into the mics again, especially if you know your voice is soft, so and just for those on Zoom. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew. Jason.
So we have 2 pathway projects in the works. One is from SSU to Crane Creek Regional Park. It's we call it Trail to Crane Creek. We're working on it with the Parks Commission, Snow County Regional Parks, and we just went out to bid last week. And then our other project along Hindbach Creek is in design. And then as far as just other projects, we have a general roadway rehab project, slurry and crack seal in design, and I think our HSIN project just went out to bid last week also, our highway safety improvement program.
Thank you. Edie, nothing?
Gotta build this stuff.
Okay.
In Healdsburg, we just finished a bollard removal project on the Foss Creek Trail. We had a lot of our trail entries and exits had 3 bollards, and we moved the outer 2. Hopefully that's safer. And we have a Healdsburg Avenue Complete Streets project in the planning phase from Powell Avenue about a mile and a half north of there, and so they're gonna do a lane. Turn it to 1 lane instead of 2, and there's gonna be a class 4 bike trail.
Thank you very much, Michael. We are also removing bollards, so that's good. North McDowell is going to be going into completion in October, November, and final would be December, but we're closing a lot of sidewalks down, doing gap closure for sidewalks Got a little, the utility element of it is gonna take a little bit longer, so there may still be a few gaps there, but that's all tracking in the right way. And then it'd be good if somebody from, Smart is here. Smart should give us an update. We can encourage them. I'm not gonna say anything about Smart then. And then on Lynch Creek Trail, I've got 3 design projects, and I think should be able to get at least one of those into construction this year. So super excited about that. Thank you. I think that's it. Smart, come on, you can give a little.
Smart just completed a segment of pathway in Petaluma between Lakeville and Payran. We also, not in Sonoma County, but also part of the pathway network, just went out to bid and awarded a contract for a segment in Marin at McGinnis, between McGinnis and Smith Ranch. And we are anticipating awarding a lot of pathway in conjunction with the Petaluma North Station in a few months. So there will be a lot under construction coming soon.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh,
Do you have a timeline on the section between Pembroke, well, actually Railroad Avenue and Pembroke, just south of that part to Petaluma?
So the section from, as part of the Petaluma North Station, the whole package, to benefit from economies of scale, we are going to go out to bid for the station, as well as pathway in between Roanoke Park and Santa Rosa, as well as a segment between Petaluma to Pengrove. There is still a segment there at Railroad going north through Pengrove that we do not have funding for, but we did with SCTA submit a grant application for. So we hope maybe there's a funding opportunity coming soon to get that segment funded.
So you're talking about from Corona, basically, where the station is, up to Pengrove?
South Point to Maine is about to go out to bid. But then there's the segment between, I hope I get this right, Maine and Railroad. Now I don't have it in front of me. That is in design, but we have a grant application out to fund construction for.
thank you very, very much, Zoe. It's good to see what Smart's got going on. I think with that, then we got shared micro-mobility updates.
Yeah, I can give a brief update on, we're running over time. We have, for the regional program, we have the RFP is out for the Sonoma Marin bike share micromobility program, and proposals are due on August 14th. And if Fieldsburg, Santa Rosa, or Windsor have anything they want to share.
I know people are asking about just the bird data from during last meeting, got access to the portal. I can't get actual specific user data, which makes sense. But there's a pretty strong pattern of 15-20 rides on the weekdays, 30 to 50 on the weekends. And you can probably infer that a lot of the bike share traffic is tourism based. And most rides are about 1.5 miles long, and they originate from the downtown area.
Do you mind if I ask, did you say 20 rides per day?
Yeah, so it's not not like a amount of traffic. 50 on the weekend.
Do you have other bike rental facilities so that your bike share is competing with someone else that offers like a tour package?
I think, a lot of the hotels and wineries offer, they have bikes, but other than that, no.
have a very random question about the bird scooters. I've discovered a bunch of them have the warning labels and instructions all in German. Which I don't know where those scooters came from. It's the usefulness here. Anyway, I'm just lagging because that seems like a communications. Anyway, I don't know what Bird's doing. Okay, I can get a picture, I'll email it to you.
Okay, I'll translate for you.
All right, any other comments, business items? Thank you very much for your time.
Here, look, I'm on June 30th, it's down the block from my house.
That's it,
Okay.